Okay, guys, so I'm going to be doing a video for Mickey's class teaching philosophy, and I want to show you the best practices for a Zoom call. So hope none of you have started a Zoom call like this before. This is bad. So I'm going to walk you through how to get to the ideal state of a Zoom call. So let's get rid of this, just throw it over my second screen. Let's go here with that. This is looking better. So usually I go through my slides and figure out where the video needs to be. I believe you can hide it for yourself if you want, but I usually like to see what the students are seeing. So let's just go into the slideshow here. It's here. And the bottom right is going to be good for this one. This can just go. If you have a second screen, you can put it there. Do that. Okay, so I'm Brandon Long, and this is my presentation. So we kind of covered a couple of the setup things, and I want to talk about some of the stuff happening out here. So as far as setup, we're pretty much there. You might not want to put everything on the second screen. It might distract yourself. So these are the small things you kind of have to get used to yourself. Minimize that. So non-distracting backgrounds, this is a pretty easy one. I mean, give me a second to fix mine. So I've got a shoe and some clothes. I'm going to push out of the way. Okay, much better, but I've not taught online or had many Zoom calls recently, so I haven't thought about the shoe rack. So the shoe rack, not good. So what I want to show you is just how to do a 3D background. So you just go to the apps. Virtual backgrounds. And pick whichever one you want. Probably the most boring will be best. I like this one. This is the one David Resnick uses, so I'll use that too. It's out of here. All right, looking a lot better. So again, I'm going to kind of just throw this over here. I like this in my second monitor too, because I can see the chat kind of ping. If I want to pay attention to that, I can put it further over out of my field of view. If I don't, that's up to you, but that's a strategy. You can also have a participant window up if you want there, but I generally like it on my second monitor. So yeah, so clear everything out of your background, which is bad. So don't underdress like me right now. So I just got back from the APA, so I'm a little disheveled, resting up a bit. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have to clear something out of your background or do something and you're wearing pajamas. That would be embarrassing. And even if you know you're not going to get up and do something, if you think you need to, that's going to be distracting for yourself. So don't be kind of put in that position and be having that in the back of your mind the entire lecture. That feels bad. So as far as the presentation itself, be pretty sparse on the text. This is entirely up to you. You can have a few slides with a lot of text and just have them animate through. And I think that works pretty well. You could use other kinds of presentation methods. There's various kinds of software out there that you can use that lets you kind of like write on you've probably seen this in like Coursera or all the big like learning companies use kind of those kinds of software where seems like you're writing on a whiteboard, and it will reverse the text for the class or the viewers. So a thing I like to think about when I'm doing any kind of Zoom presentation is if the lecture is going to fill any kind of gap in my curriculum, or if it could in the future, I will always record it and I will save it on my PC and then use Windows Drive or Google Drive is best to preserve it for indefinitely. And this is good for a number of reasons. You can kind of track your teaching progress, number one. Number two, you can have a video that if you're out for a conference or if you're out sick, it's not going to entirely replace the lecture, obviously, but it's going to maybe save you half a day of class, maybe a full day. So that's a resource you can use that actually doesn't increase. There's no cost to recording it, right? But one thing I will say is don't be afraid to delete old lectures that you've kept that just aren't really up to your current teaching standards. That's you don't want to be using very old material or just be presenting in a style that you just don't agree with anymore. So this is a good one. So for having read Hutchinson, I'm thinking about moral senses more. So maybe a way to use this in your teaching curriculum is to encourage, incentivize. I haven't really thought about exactly how to incentivize students to do this, because when I've seen it done, it's mostly been where the teacher just will say that it's required, or they will say that everyone should unmute their video, which doesn't always work, I see, especially with undergrads. Not really a problem with graduate students, but people will just engage more if the screen's on. They'll feel more obligated to speak, feel like they're being spoken to rather than at, or yeah, so when they see that they're kind of failing some duty to be responsive, it seems that that duty feels a bit stronger when the person sharing the screen. And if you send 4 students that don't have their video shared to a breakout room, I don't think it's uncommon to expect that no one will talk. They'll just be totally checked out. And obviously there's plenty of communicative benefits, from just speaking in person. There's just so many cues and facial tics or expressions that you can't really get anywhere else. So one thing that I saw during my summer internship with David Resnick was that he would stop every 20 minutes and have a chat. And these are pretty good undergrad students, plus me, plus one other grad student. So we had a pretty good conversation interspersed in between the lectures, and it's a really good way to engage students who want to participate. I'm not fully convinced this would work with first-year undergrads. It might be a different method, some kind of similar method that would work. Maybe breakout rooms, but that could probably get pretty feral, I would imagine. So something interactive every 20 minutes to break up the lecturing. No one likes to sit through a 2-hour lecture. Even grad students find it fairly difficult. So one thing that I've done in the past is to kind of put some kind of burden on the individual groups, ask like a member to kind of recite like what the material was on or what they discussed. And that usually, at least for one person in the group, forces them to at least learn, or they'll be kind of embarrassed not saying anything as you circle around to the groups, which again, if their video is on, will be a little bit worse for them, so they'll be more inclined to participate. So that's a pretty good strategy. One problem that I've had in the past is that students don't really, it's a group of 4, there's only be one person that's really holding up the epistemic state for the group. So I haven't solved that issue yet, but I think maybe cutting students off and having other students participate within the groups might be good, or just say that each person's going to be responsible for one concept and then give the entire class, 4 concepts. So I'll just ask each person about a kind of concept or idea, but some way to distribute that participation out to everybody. So this is a kind of a controversial one. So it really just depends how personable the students take you to be. I think for me personally, I need to be a bit more personable. It kind of seem a bit aloof, so this is it's kind of just mileage may vary by person. So you just want students to feel comfortable enough to speak in class, to approach you about an issue. That's not always true. You want them to approach you for issues that are important, not issues that they feel like they can get away with. So there's trade-offs doing both. So just kind of find how naturally you find yourself being perceived by the students and then modulate it to whatever level you want. One thing I would like to kind of express as well is that, well, before we actually conclude, so so don't have a lot of tabs open. That's bad, right? And another kind of hygiene thing would be maybe to showing YouTube videos using incognito tabs. Your video recommendations aren't popping up. You might get recommendations for British boy bands popping up, and this is a bit better of a plain background. Again, I kind of a shoe rack popping in the back, but minus that, be really good because there's just a plain white background. That's kind of the ideal state if you're not using virtual background. These, I want to get rid of these honestly because I think the favorites are bookmarked. Not exactly sure, but they're kind of distracting for me, and I occasionally click them and send me all kinds of strange places that I've saved for some reason. So just get rid of those and just have a nice, simple background. And probably if you're sharing the screen, don't have any personalized backgrounds that are distracting. And yeah, so in conclusion, just want to wrap up. So this is not really a hard and fast pedagogical rule, but you should summarize frequently and wrap up the presentation by kind of recounting all the things you learned. So we talked about how you should kind of set up the presentation, how you should present your background, kind of tips for working with dual monitors, tips for student participation, stuff like that, as well as just general presentation skills like dress, etiquette, and how to not distract yourself. So lastly, allow airtime for questions. This is super important, obviously, not just for learning, but in case students are confused about something on the syllabus, you can clear it up without having to answer 1,000 emails the next day. So yes, this is my presentation. I hope it maybe gave you a few ideas for how to curate your own Zoom collection of classes and maybe kind of de-stress your times that you're not able to teach in person. So thanks.